Anel. I'm an alcoholic. I wish I spent more time thinking about what I was going to say. But I guess I'll just start at the beginning. I spent most of my life in Pretoria. I grew up in Pretoria. Never went too far from there. From a very young age, I knew that something was a bit different with me. I struggled to get along with people or to connect with people or know how to be. It seemed like everybody had a manual to life and they forgot to give me a copy, and I really struggled, like those bedevilments that they talk about in the big book. Those were kind of there from the start. I was an incredibly fearful little girl. I struggled to get away from home at any time. I wouldn't go to sleepovers or whatever, but the behaviors were definitely there, and I just remember just not feeling a part of anything and not being worthy of anything, and very much caught up in my own ideas, my own head, and incredibly self-obsessed as I understand it today. Because I thought that everybody was looking at me, nobody liked me, and I'm pretty sure that my perception of my childhood and the reality of my childhood are two very different things. I have a certain perception which is very alcoholically based, and I've spent a lot of my years in adulthood trying to basically say, like, I had such a bad childhood or I had such a bad upbringing, but if I look back now with clarity, I can see that there were such beautiful times in my childhood. This program has given me perspective where I can also see, like, what wonderful parents I have, how many times they took me on vacation, and I can have gratitude for that now. But during active alcoholism, it's impossible. I looked at the time my parents got divorced, or the times that they fought, or the times things didn't work out, and I just continued to say, like, oh, it's such a difficult childhood. But I guess, like, looking back, there's a lot of stuff that is incredibly abnormal. I wasn't a normal drinker. The time that I started drinking is not normal. I don't think like 11, 12-year-olds should be drinking alcohol, and these are things that I sought out, and I sought out other substances as well. And like, for me, one thing that stands out is that I did get the warnings, like, you shouldn't be doing this, and that can be quite bad for you. I had no fear surrounding that stuff. When offered to me, I was like, yes, please. That stands out for me because I think it was like more of the fear was like having to be the way that I was. I just could not manage being the way that I was in a sober state of mind. That's something that played out all the time as well. Like, I really struggled with the idea of having to be sober-minded, even just for a day. I didn't like the idea. I wanted something, a pill, anything. Just give me something so that I don't have to be me. So there was lots of interventions from the time that I was young, because my disease is incredibly progressive and it progressed really fast. By the time I was 14, I was already in trouble with substances, and my parents tried to intervene, and the way that interventions usually went is like, okay, you're going to go to another school, you're going to go, we're going to get a protection order against this boyfriend, and you're going to get new friends. And they really tried to change everything on the outside in order for me to be okay. I also went and saw a psychiatrist. I was placed on medication and placed in a new school, and it just it progressively got worse. If I look over the period of time, but there were times that it did go better, and like my brain hanged on to those times. It's like, but yeah, look at April you could manage, for instance, and I would use, my disease would use that, and I would use that as a justification of, I don't really have a problem. If I really want to, I can manage. I mean, look at April. So I'd go on having like a lot of delusions about myself, about my drinking, about other people, and I just carry on with this stuff. One thing that also stands out for me in my journey is that if there is something that South Africa has to offer with regards to addiction treatment, alcoholism treatment, I've probably done that. I have a lot of experience with different ways that professionals or non-professionals or families or whatever try and deal with this disease. And I don't know, like, I think that must be part of my journey, but like I've really, really tried everything. The medication genuinely didn't work, and I was on and off of it. Then I saw a lot of therapists and got to speak about me all the time, which I loved. Like I could speak about my most favorite topic, and how everybody has wronged me, and I could just talk about, like a lot of feelings, could talk about how I think that the world should change. And a lot of my upside down thinking is based on that, like if my parents change, I'll change. Or if I get the right type of job, or if I get my degree, then I'll change. But I needed to change in order for those things around me to change, and I never got that concept. I constantly wanted the world to change in order to suit me, which, it's incredibly self-centered. But yeah, so I've gone to the therapist. I've tried religion. That also really didn't work for me. I've tried, like I said, medication, and then these preventative medications. Like, there's some medications that you can take, and then the doctor will tell you, like, listen, if you drink on this medication, you will have incredibly bad side effects, and you might even die. And I don't know, like, I don't think that I'm stupid, but as the doctor said that to me, I was like, okay. And 2 weeks later, I drank on that medication and got incredibly sick. Which just shows me today, like, how incredibly bad my obsession was, and like how if my obsession didn't go away, I don't think I would have made it. Because even if you tell me, like, listen, you will die if you do this, I think I wasn't as afraid of that as I was of living sober, having to be sober in this crazy head of mine. So I've also, I believe the reason why I went and studied what I studied, I went and studied psychology, was also very self-centered. I wanted to look like I want to help other people, but actually I wanted to find out what the hell is wrong with me. I knew that there was something wrong with me, and I couldn't figure it out, and other people couldn't figure it out. So I thought, like, well, let's just go study more about me. And I struggled at university because I was still struggling with this disease. At times, like, I'd just be binge drinking and then studying and then binge drinking and trying to manage. But this disease got worse and worse. things that I could do the year before and kind of juggle the year after, I couldn't manage anymore. I also couldn't understand that. It like did my head in completely, because I knew that, but 2 years ago you could manage this, because I didn't understand how progressive this disease is. I also couldn't understand why I couldn't drink like other people. I couldn't understand why my friends would stop after 3 drinks. I don't understand it. It just isn't my reality. I would stop once the alcohol is gone. I have a sister that grew up very similar to me, and she would, drink half a glass of whatever and then say, like, I've had enough. And I don't get that. That makes no sense to me. Enough, like, I don't know what that's about. But she could do that. And I couldn't understand, like, why can you do that? And I can't. And no one ever explained it to me. But anyway, so like I was kind of going along, but not really managing at all. The unmanageability was quite clear. By the end, I was 28. I was still living with my mom. I've been in and out of there for a while. I was completely unemployable. What I mean with unemployable is like I would get a job quite easily, because by that time I had degrees and stuff, and I could manage an interview sometimes. But people wouldn't employ me for longer than 2-3 weeks, and I'd be out of there. Because I'd be showing up drunk, I'd be causing chaos, I wouldn't be showing up on time, and I'd be like, one thing that I did often is I would steal from people. I've stolen from a lot of people, and it was basically mainly to maintain my alcoholism. And at that time, I had a head that told me that this is actually okay. This is not really such a big problem, because the world owes you a lot. By the end, I was very, very tired, because I say we because my family was very involved in trying to save me. We have tried everything and nothing worked. I went to a lot of psychiatric units in that time. I went to quite a bit of rehabs as well. Like, we went from specialist to specialist, and we tried the medication route. They've tried a lot of stuff in order to manage me, like tracking my car and keeping my money away, and like I'd always find a way around these things and make sure that I get what I needed. So by the end, we were all very tired. My family had had enough of me, and thank goodness for that. And like, I had enough of me. I couldn't live with it. I couldn't live doing like drugs and alcohol. I really struggled. I didn't want to do it anymore. There did come a time where I said, like, okay, like, I'm not going to drink anymore. And the amount of fear, I so connect to this fear, because I always said, like, if you really, really, really want to this time, you'd be able to stop. And I remember, like, really, really, really wanting to stop this time and still getting drunk. And the amount of fear involved in that was tremendous. Like, just realizing, like, actually, like, you can't stop. And acknowledging that, finding out that there's not much out there in terms of getting better, and like, not want to, like, getting better was I thought that getting better meant just not having the alcohol and having to still live with me, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. So like I was quite suicidal here by the end. Luckily there was this last intervention, and I went to a facility, and they did the 12 steps. And honestly, I did hear about the 12 steps before. I don't know. I just never thought about it as an actual solution ever. But I did realize that it's something that I haven't done before. I've never tried this way before, and it absolutely saved my life. Although if you asked me at the time, I thought that it was the worst thing that could have happened to me in the whole wide world, because like I was at this treatment center, and they were actually telling me the truth, and that was horrifying. And people were confronting me for the first time. Also, like this brain with this perception and this way of thinking, I didn't like that at all. I thought that these people are crazy, and they obviously don't know about psychology. And so like there was a lot of ideas that got challenged, but my first real like awakening in this program was after doing step 1, finally realizing what was wrong with me, that I'm alcoholic, that I am like bodily and mentally different from my fellows. Like that realization was beautiful, because for such a long time throughout my life, I really searched for that answer, and realizing that this is what's wrong with me, it changed my life, because it also wasn't an intellectual thing. I like did the work on step 1. I was honest in step 1. I talked about things that I was never willing to talk to anyone with. But since it was another alcoholic sitting across from me, I figured, like, you can't judge me. I don't know. So, like, I was willing to be honest for the first time as well. And it went from a head thing, intellectual thing of, like, you're an addict, because I've said that before, or you're an alcoholic. I've said that before, but not ever, like, it was an intellectual thing. Versus now, it went down into my soul, and I kind of understood and realized and integrated the idea that I'm an alcoholic, and it wasn't a sad thing. It was a really, really relieving thing. I think that for years and years and years, not wanting to admit my powerlessness is what caused all the unmanageability. As soon as I was willing to admit that I'm powerless, I could be like, okay, cool. What do I need to do? But as long as I was not willing to admit that I'm powerless, I was trying to manage how much I drank, whatever. And that stands true for a lot of things in my recovery. If I'm not willing to admit that I'm powerless over another person, life becomes unmanageable quite quickly. So I did this program, and I was so desperate, because I got a kind of taste of what it can be like to be in recovery. And I saw you guys at meetings, and you were smiling, but you were telling my story, and I finally felt like I was fitting in somewhere, and that I could be myself. And like I was incredibly desperate to work this program, and that helped me a lot. I was on the phone with a sponsor often. I was at a meeting every night. I did a lot of work on myself, but mostly the work that I did on myself was forgetting about myself for a bit. Which was a hard concept to understand, because I always felt like I needed to find myself somehow. And a big concept for me in this program is like, enough about you. And more about others and being of service to other people. And slowly but surely, as recovery progressed and I worked the principles of this program, like things became better and better and better. I'm not saying it always went splendid and well, because I had this idea as well. I said like, well, now that I'm sober, everything should be going like really great. Another like really delusional idea of mine. It didn't always go great, and there was a lot of challenges, but what I found about this program, and this is so amazing to me, is like this program has given me that manual that I wanted at the beginning of life, where I said everybody could manage life and I couldn't. I finally got the manual, and this program is my manual, because I can deal with conflict situations today that I would never be able to deal with. I'm going to be a mom soon, and that's incredibly scary, but I know, like, I have a manual, and I truly believe this, that if I can just raise a child, for instance, according to the principles that this program has, I think I'd be okay, you know? If I can have a relationship according to the principles of this program, I'm going to be okay. Now, I'm still sick, and I still get to places, and I have throughout the years, where I think like, well, I have a better plan. Now, whenever I get to a space where I think that I have a better plan, I am in a lot of trouble, and I should back away slowly, as quickly as possible. But yeah, it's because I'm so prone to that self-obsession, that delusion, that self-centeredness, that when I get involved in that, I really, really make a mess. But the beauty of this program is that you can always just come back. You can start from the start, and I can remember, and the start for me is like, wait a minute, what are you powerless over? Yeah. And this is why all the unmanageability, and then to hand it over to a higher power. My reality is that there was no human power that could save me, and I've collected a lot of evidence of God throughout my recovery, and actually throughout active alcoholism there's a lot of evidence of God in my life. Sometimes I struggle to have faith in that power, but I have enough evidence that I should not trust in myself, in this disease, because when I get to where my disease lies, which is in my thinking, in my mind, if I get to rely on my mind, I have enough evidence to know that I shouldn't rely here. It's sometimes hard for me because I can't see a higher power. There's no person like actually speaking to me or that I can see. But when working this program, I have a lot of experience of God. When coming to a meeting, I experience spirituality. When speaking to a lot of members and being in this fellowship, people just speak to me and I'm like, wow, that's messages from a higher power. When I can be of service to other people, I get exactly what I need as well, where I can experience a higher power. I'll end off with, I think there are about 180 different words to describe water, for instance. And this made a lot of sense to me when someone explained it to me. There's so many words and adverbs to describe water, but the only way that you would know what water really is by experiencing it. And I've been at stages where I can talk this program so well and like I can describe it so well, but if I don't experience it, I don't really know what it is. I don't need to understand this program in order for it to work. I just need to experience it. I need to take the action, and then I will experience it. Just like if I drink water, swim in water, shower in water, whatever, I can experience what water is. How do I experience my higher power? By doing this program. Thanks for letting me share.